Welcome to another episode of Got Time with Christopher John, your scholar and gentleman in a hoodie. June is Black Music Month and an opportunity to celebrate all the genres of Black music that illuminates the culture. Dinah Williams, a legendary radio personality, is the founder of Black Music Month. She had a passion to amplify Black music, which led to the birth of Black Music Month in 1979. Co-founded with DJ Ed Wright and her former husband, Philly soul legend Kenny Gamble, the Black Music Association was created. Diana also serves on the board of the National Museum of African American Music. I was fortunate to be a guest at their annual Black Music celebration last year. At the event, I was introduced to the Black Music Association and the work it continues to do today. I learned about the essential role Kenny Gamble played in the conception of the association. I learned the first Black Music Month event was held on June 7th, man, that's a good day, in 1979, at the White House under the Jimmy Carter administration. Dinah shared these iconic pictures of the event that was held on the White House lawn. Much respect and admiration to Dinah Williams, Kenny Gamble, and the Black Music Association. Beyond soul, funk, hip-hop, R&B, jazz, and gospel, Black music includes go-go from the DMV, bounce from NOLA, house from the Chi and the D, and most certainly country. Yeah, I said it, country. From Shabootsie, Cowboy Carter, to boots on the ground, there's a resurgence of Black country music and culture. The recent popularity includes new music, line dancing, and fashion. This Southern vibe has been growing in recent years. Artists like Beyonce, Kane Brown, Mickey Guyton, Reese Palmer, and more have been illuminating the Black country music scene. And there's this offspring of country music mingled with R&B and hip-hop called Southern Soul or Trail Ride music. The leading artists of this sound are Jeter Jones, FPJ, King South, and 803 Fresh. Check out some of these artists and catch a vibe. Now, we've been trailblazing in country music for a while. Lenora Ross is an example of that. In 1975, Lenora Ross was once touted as a female Charley Pride. For those who don't know, Charley Pride is a country music legend. Historical side note, Charley Pride was the first singer to sing the national anthem at a Super Bowl. Lenora was looked upon as the next rising star in country music. But where did she grow up? Alabama, Georgia, or Texas? Nope. Lenora grew up in Cummingsville on the north side of Cincinnati, Ohio. That's right, Cincinnati, Ohio. As a teenager, she was the vocalist with Johnny Smith combo performing at clubs and lounges. Lenora also performed with the group in Covington, Kentucky. Early ads often misspelled her name, but she was getting noticed. After high school, she sang with a jazz band in Europe before returning to Cincinnati in 1968. She also auditioned to become part of the Lawrence Welk Show. Although she was a runner-up for the opportunity, Lenora earned an invitation to be on one of the shows in 1971. She continued to sing in nightclubs and made TV appearances on Midwestern Hayride and The Nick Clooney Show. Yes, George's daddy. From 1974 to 1975, she released 2 country singles. The last known recording by Lenora was Early in the Morning. a single on the independent label. Unfortunately, her music career was brief, yet her legacy lives on. Joining me today at the table is a content developer, a historic preservationist of Black activism and advocacy, as well as a Black music scholar, Dr. Jacqueline P. Hudson. I'm just going to call her Jackie. Thank you for making time and joining me here today.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, so tell me, my listeners and my viewers a little bit more about yourself, and the work that you're currently doing.
So I am currently a curator. I am like you just said, historic preservationist, and I'm just an advocate for everything Black. As Issa Rae always say, I'm rooting for everybody Black.
Okay, everybody Black. I heard that. And I know that we had some talk. You have some exhibits that's going to be opening up in the fall, right? Could you talk a little bit about those exhibits that were opening up in your Louisville, correct?
Yes, I am in Louisville.
Yeah.
So I am the African American History Program Manager at the Hudson Historical Society in Louisville. And my role as the program manager is basically just community outreach and engagement. So it can, entail in many different things like, exhibitions, programming, or, collections and publications. But, to address your question, I have two exhibits that are happening.
All right.
In the fall. So one is going to be about just, basically the title of the exhibit is called This ... is Black Louisville. And basically we'll just talk about the I would say the history, but just highlighting, Black Americans, or I'm sorry, Black Louisvillians contribution to the city. And it's not just going to be, talking about, it's going to talk about the past, but then also the present. And then the other exhibit that I'm going to be producing, I'm co-curating with the photo curator, and basically it's going to be part of the photo biennial, which happens obviously every 2 years. And basically this is just a group of people who appreciate art and wants an art and culture, and wants encouraging other institutions in the city to participate in doing exhibits based on photography. So I was put to task on to actually develop the exhibit for this particular year. Oh. And so I thought that I should do something that's a tribute to the Black family. So basically I'm just going to be doing featuring different Black families in the city, as well as not just traditional families, but chosen families too, like such as clubs, such as school, such as communities, and also the D9.
Okay. Well, look, I can't wait till that come out. We might have to take a trip down to Louisville so we can check out that exhibit.
You better.
Absolutely. So, I in the opening, I talked a little bit about this resurgence of, Black country music, and what are your thoughts on the current state of Black country music? We was down in Tampa, and there wasn't a Beyonce concert, and we saw cowboy boots and we saw cowboy hats, and it's like it's a part of the culture now. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm just going to say is that it was there all along.
Right.
I have to admit that Beyonce definitely put that out there in the at stratosphere about acknowledging Black artists that contribute to country music. But I'm be honest, it was already there. And we just not say ignore it, we just didn't know about like these artists that contributed to country music. So yeah, I don't have like an educated answer for that, but it's been already there.
Right, right. I will give, the credit for her using her star power to illuminate,
Almost definitely.
definitely the country music and what's taking place. Um, and so I know that you've been a scholar. Looking at your shirt, I see here, I can tell the artists that you love: Dave Hollister, Eric Roberson, Brandy, Jasmine Sullivan, Luther Vandross. Definitely I see Chicago and Philly all represented. With the shirt that you're rocking right now. So
Gotta represent. That's my top 5.
I heard.
I'm sorry, my top 5 R&B artists.
Okay, you heard that. Top 5. So can you unpack your love and scholarship regarding Black music?
Wow, Chris, that's a loaded question. I just, Black music, it's a feeling. It's not just the lyrics, but the music. It takes you to a place if you're, happy or you're sad or you angry or just all types of emotions. It's just a feeling. I mean, what I love about the, Black music is that it's the, social foundation of the American soundtrack.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, when we think about, Black music, obviously we think, jazz is Black music. We think of blues as Black music. We think of, we just mentioned earlier in your introduction that country is Black music. Yeah. And heck, even rock and roll is Black music. So I just like, my goal in my career is to, make sure that I let people know that Black folks, contribute to the American soundtrack.
Absolutely. I know with the movie Centers coming out, there's quite this fascination with the blues. I can see that, playing a role in a new audience, I guess, being introduced reintroduced, I would say, to blues music and so forth. And Black music intersects with all these genres, and it's amazing, what we've been able to achieve. And a lot of that has come out of, the trauma and the pain that we've exhibited. You talked about how the music, how it makes you feel. I mean, and so that's what it is. It's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling, and so it's coming from a spirit, so in a lot of cases it's spiritual, like the spirituals that were sung in the cotton fields and the tobacco fields, our ancestors did. So absolutely, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
So if you could talk, so we have this history, we have this legacy.
Right.
And so, I want to talk a little bit about the music of today.
Okay.
And your take on how Black music has evolved. We talked about country music, but how about, more contemporary artists and music that are out? What is your take on that?
You know what? I'm a product of the 70s and 80s. So, but for the music that I listen to today and the contemporary artists, I have that feeling that they're going back to those R&B roots, like, just talking about love and then talking about, just the craft of, creating music and creating R&B music or creating hip hop music. I know there's a, like you said, resurgence in country, but then like, I just feel like that it's, how like everything like repeats itself. And I think that, thinking about the music of the, I would say more like the late 80s, early 90s, that I feel that genre of music or that type of music, R&B music is, has emerged again. So I think that's what I'm seeing in regards to like the I guess the climate of the R&B or Black music in general.
Right. It's like when you were talking, I was thinking about Leon Thomas. I believe that's his name. The artist that has the song. Leon Thomas, he has the song Mutt. Have you heard that song?
I don't think I've never heard of that.
Oh, you got to check that out. So, He started on, I think, on Nickelodeon or Disney.
Okay.
He was with Ariana Grande and so
Oh.
forth. And he was like, as a child, he was this, child prodigy star, acting and all that. But he also sings, and so he just released some new work. And what is refreshing to me is he is a musician. He's not just a singer.
Yep.
And so, with and I think about the new music of today, there's a couple things. It was missing like that live musicianship. What I believe is starting to come back a little bit. But I think a lot of that has to do with they taking music out of schools too.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
when I was growing up, we had to play an instrument.
Same here. Same here. Yep. And little, I actually played, and this is as much as playing music that I did, but I played the snare drums in junior high. That was it. That was it. But other than that, I'm more in the background kind of gal. So, because I told you that I did work in the music industry for a while. Right. So yeah, I worked in urban radio promotions. I worked in radio promotions on the radio side, and then I worked on the urban radio promotions on the record label side, and then I worked in in music retail. So, and that was all of that was a total of like 15, 20 years. So I mean, I'm just knee deep in music.
Well, you got a name drop. I mean, what are some of the artists that you work with? You talking about 15 to 20 years. So what are some of the artists that you worked with during that stretch?
Well, there was this little artist called 50 Cent.
Oh, okay.
And
go shorty, it's your birthday. All right.
And there was this little artist called Mary J. Blige.
All right.
Yeah, and I would I've met other artists. I mean, Keisha Cole. So the record label that I worked for was Interscope Records. So yeah. I mean, but also I met other artists that were not on the label. When I was working at the radio station, I was working at the music store where they had those in stores or whatnot. So yeah, I've had my share of meeting music artists. Okay. And I'm sorry, and then also a little known artist as the Isley Brothers too.
Oh, Lincoln Heights' very own.
For sure.
We gotta, Lincoln Heights was made national news this year, where the black community there stood up to Nazis. And so it's very important when we talk about black music. Can't leave out the Isley Brothers.
Of course not.
For sure. You mentioned the Isley. This is what's crazy to me. The other day I was watching, I was just surfing through channels, and I came across a new song by 2 Chainz.
I love 2 Chainz.
2 Chainz featuring the Isley Brothers.
Of course.
And my man Ron, he said, I don't have to stand for nothing. He's sitting on this chair in front of a store just singing. And I thought to myself, they are determined to make music for 10 decades, it appears. Because you're talking about Isley Brothers, if I understand it correctly, goes back to at least the 60s.
I think maybe the 50s.
The 50s, yeah.
Because they I'm not sure if they originated, but it was a very popular version of Twist and Shout, Yeah. So, I mean, and then the white kids like gravitated towards that. So again, like they're just a national treasure.
Man, you talking about the 50s, the 60s, since we well into the 2000s, let me go back. We talking about 1950, 1960.
Right.
1970, that's a good decade right there.
That's a very good decade.
You got 1980s, and I think they had that Sailing album on there. I remember that during the 1980s. Then you had 1990s, and they got with Mr. Robert Kelly.
Yes.
And
then Ronald Isley was Mr. Biggs.
That's right. Yeah. And and they're continuing to make music. And we talking about in 2025, and they're doing a collab with 2 Chainz. Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
And I think about like some of the artists who, reach out to their elders and collaborate, and then also thinking about hip hop artists, sampling, some of these artists' songs, and, you know, seeing that is, a testament of, they're growing up in their parents' house or grandparents' house, listening to those records. Obviously, I'm pretty sure like all black folks had the experience of like cleaning up the house on a Saturday morning, listening to R&B music with your parents. Because,
no. Let's talk about what was being played in your house during that time when it's cleanup time, when you have to get out the pledge and you have to dust the furniture,
right.
and you got to turn the vacuum on and vacuum the carpet. What's being played?
Anita Baker, Luther Vandross, Isley Brothers, Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes with that infamous Black Moses poem.
Yeah.
That was in the house, and Taste of Honey and Sister Sledge. So yeah, but then also with the resurgence of BET in the early 80s, then we also we actually had a visual to attach to the music, and with Video Soul with Donnie Simpson and Rap City with Chris Thomas, and I feel like we always I always hear about like how rap was brought into the mainstream by MTV Raps, but what about let's not forget Rap City though. Rap City, like I think
the mayor.
Yeah, exactly. I gravitated more with Rap City because I would have never heard about A Tribe Called Quest. I would have never heard about Poor Righteous Teachers. I wouldn't have heard about like Black Moon. Ooh. I wouldn't have heard about Lord Finesse or Das Effect. So again, Rap City was like I say Rap City was for me as opposed. No, don't get me wrong. Yo MTV Raps was great, but Rap City was my jam.
Man, when you said Poor Righteous Teachers, we forget about them.
Exactly.
I rocked that funky joint.
Of course.
I mean, I forgot about them. You are absolutely right.
And then Lord Professor, who was a mentor to Nas, so again, it's just, living in a small town in Mississippi, and I was homebody, shy Black girl, didn't really go out, but I was glued to that television set watching Rap City and watching Video Soul and watching Midnight Love, and knowing I shouldn't be watching Midnight Love, but that's no here nor there.
Hey, well, radio, you had that Quiet Storm would come
right,
on,
exactly.
Like,
so again, I had very progressive parents. Looking back at it now, like some of the music I had no business listening to.
You was listening to Millie Jackson? That's what you trying to tell me?
Well, that is hey, Isley Brothers was a little expensive too.
But see, Isley Brothers was smooth with theirs.
Of course,
Millie, see, look, it's straight, no chaser.
I know. Right. But Earth, Wind and Fire was, smooth with it too.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't know Reasons was about a one night affair. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, and I realized that. I found that out like, maybe like 5-10 years ago. So yeah.
So, here we talking about music. I mean, same thing. I grew up in a household where my mother is Jamaican, West Indian culture. So I was listening to Calypso and Bob Marley, Gregory Isaac, Dennis Brown with some. And then my dad is from Mississippi, your home state, And so I'm listening to Bobby Womack, ZZ Hill, So, I mean, I'm being doused with this range of music that opened my curiosity to all these other genres and so forth.
But I don't want to interrupt, right? Interject right with that.
Please.
So, and I had a conversation with my sister about, like, our parents and our grandparents, influenced us in regards to like the type of music that we listen to, and we were talking about how it's so different back then and now in regards to how the youth listen to music. And we were talking, and she brought up a great point, like we had to listen to it because we didn't we were in the car with our parents, we were cleaning up the house on Saturday morning, or we didn't have the technology that we have now. But now the kids these days, they have that, the phones, the iPads, so they listen on their listen to them, listen on their own. They're not listening as a family. So
Wow.
so my sister's really smart, but anyway, but yeah, I think that's a shift in regards to like the music taste, because like I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and one of the guests was like baffled that her younger cousin didn't know who Outkast was. And I was like, but then I have to think about it, like, the kids are, I thought about what I just said about like kids are listening to their own type of music. They're not being told what to listen to.
That could be a challenge for Black Music Month. Hey, y'all have a listening party, family listening party. I think that would be hot. Speaking of a challenge, here in the Queen City in Cincinnati, they have this music festival. And my understanding for many years has been the second largest Black music festival that takes place. And so my question to you is, if you could construct your own music festival with 5 artists, dead or alive, what would be your 5 artists? And that could be just artists, that could be bands, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about your 5 artists, bands, whatever the case may be, that you would create your own. It would be the Dr. Jackie Music Fest. What would be those artists?
Well, there has to be Prince.
Oh, okay, all right.
Like I've seen Prince like twice. I've seen Prince twice, and it changed my life. Luther Vandross.
Okay. All right.
Mint Condition.
All right. Pretty Brown Eyes. Yes. Okay.
I actually have to have a actual band in that.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I got to give it up for the ladies. Anita Baker.
All right.
And oh my gosh, Mary J. Blige.
Okay. You know what? I think a lot of people would show up for that
one.
Well,
I want to add a 6th one because I have to have some like
you just
hip hop.
You're gonna make up your own rules. Okay, that's all right. No, well, okay.
That's who I am, man.
Okay, yeah.
But no, I would add. I have to add a hip hop group, A Tribe Called Quest. That's my all-time favorite hip hop group.
For real? Over Outkast?
Yes.
Oh.
And I love me some Outkast. I'm excited that they're going to be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
Salt and Pepper.
I would love Andre 3000 to come on and pull up to the table and chop it up with me, because that would be a lot of Gemini energy in the room.
Of course.
For that one. Absolutely. So I shared with you, and for those listeners and viewers, on my YouTube channel, I created a Got Time with CJ 2025 Black Music Month playlist. And I shared it with you. And so I want to kind of talk about, what are your thoughts about my playlist that I created? And I put some boundaries on myself.
So tell me the boundaries again.
What I wanted to do, I had to keep it to 21 songs.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I featured artists that we recently lost. I wanted to make sure that I also wanted to merge the past with the present as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have some new stuff on there, but also some foundational older music projects that were being done as well.
Okay.
So that was somewhat of my boundaries.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get down to 21, which is...
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like I got on my playlist that I have in Amazon Music, I literally have like four different playlists.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the opportunity to look at the playlist.
I did.
Okay. So, did anything stand out, as far as that?
Yeah, I know, well, first of all, I knew that you were very intentional. Like,
Mm-hmm.
As long as we've known each other, I know that you are very intentional when it comes to Black music.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, but yeah, Voyage to Atlantis by Isley Brothers is a an oldie but goodie.
Oh, yeah, that's you talk about a feeling.
Oh, for sure.
That song you played it. It is absolutely. You feel like you're on a voyage
Oh, for sure.
to Atlantis.
Exactly.
I
Oh,
mean,
for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, you had The Lady in My Life by Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think I read somewhere that it was like a Rolling Stone article, and sometimes I take that with a grain of salt. But they said that, like, if it wasn't for The Lady in My Life, it would have been a perfect album of a Thriller album. And I was like,
Who
whoa!
said that?
It was an article about that. Yes, and
Blasphemous.
I know, blasphemous for sure. But yeah, but I think you had Adore by Prince.
Oh yeah.
It's just a great song, and I love the ending of it. And but that's not my favorite Prince slow jam.
So what's your favorite Prince slow jam then?
It's Scandalous off the Batman soundtrack.
Scandalous.
Well, you know what?
Talking about you.
It's a tie between Scandalous and Insatiable off the I think it's the Diamonds and Pearls album.
See, so what I wanted to do was, you are absolutely right. I mean, you have Call My Name too. He came out.
Yep.
It's more recent.
Exactly.
So I mean, Prince, he put it down. Adore. It just had so much love in it.
Of
You know what I'm
course,
saying?
yeah,
And I just feel, what we've been going through, we need to inject love for each other, love for our significant others, love for our community and whatnot. So that's why I kind of went with Adore a little bit much. But those other songs, they're bangers.
And going a little bit old school, because like I said earlier, the 70s is like my favorite decade in regards to Black music. So you had Curtis Mayfield, you had Isaac Hayes, and Isaac Hayes was a genius.
Right.
Like, and he's infamous for his long songs.
Well, you know what? That's the one thing I hope new artists will revisit. Because we had a conversation we've had previous conversations about, and my wife, we also had a conversation about how long the songs were. You talk about Isaac Hayes and Curtis Mayfield, they had records that were 6-7 minutes long.
Well, I think one of them was 14 minutes long.
Oh yeah. And you talk about Luther Vandross as well. You look at his most notable songs. It was almost like it was musical theater. The music today is like, the song is too long if it's over 3 minutes. And I'm like, and for me, it's like, man, my ear, I'm like, I want to hear a little bit more.
Right.
That 3 minutes is hot, but
right.
Right. But you're absolutely right. The artists, it was almost like they were taking their time with it, and it's kind of set you up, and it's kind of almost like it's preparing your mind for what you're about to experience.
Right. But also, bringing my history background into the mix, where, think we're talking about like old school music, and my experience of, filling out an application for the Ohio historical marker for the Troutman Sound Labs in Dayton. So, I mean, to make a long story short, is basically a colleague of mine turned our school assignment into an actual of actually getting the marker installed at the former location of the recording studio, and having Shirley Murdoch and having two of the brothers to come to the dedication ceremony was a life affirming reason why I do this work. And it even though I have all these degrees and I have or whatnot, but I'm still a fan of Black music. And you don't have to have all these degrees, or you don't have to have all this training to honor these musicians who put in blood, sweat, and tears into the music that you like. Right. So, I mean, it's just the small things can really, help. I mean, I worked at the National Museum of African American Music, as a consultant right before it opened, and just seeing my work in the hip hop gallery is another life affirming, so that people's eyes are going to come into that museum and see what I wrote, or what I acquire these photographs. So, and then I also worked at the National Blues Museum. So in addition to the academic work, but the actual professional work is, music is embedded in me with as well. And I think I've told you this before, is that Black Music Month is my favorite month. So I'm saying outside of September though.
Well, no, June is a quite fabulous month. Absolutely.
I do have to give you that. You and Prince are born on the same day.
Yeah. Hey, what's known don't need to be said. It's all good. I will say this. You mentioned Zap and Roger, and it just speaks once again. I have a lot of listeners out of Ohio, since we're down here downtown at the TCP studios downtown Cincinnati. And Ohio has an amazing amount of history. So when Zap and Roger, my fraternity brothers, Mo Bounce, that is a classic. I mean, it's infused into, it goes beyond the dance floor. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And so, for those that come to visit, we have the Black Music Walk of Fame that's here, which is an outstanding representation of not music just only in Ohio, but all over the country. And so with this, the last thing I'm gonna get you out of here, and with this time is, could you culminate or talk about expound a little bit more about what does Black Music Month mean to you? You said your favorite month, I mean, I guess to go a little bit further, I'm like, unpack that. Just like, why is it so meaningful for you?
Because I mentioned earlier, that Black music is the social foundation of the American soundtrack, but Black music was the soundtrack of my life. Like, I remember the first time, when they say, one of my, I guess, music history heroes, Questlove, was talking about, like, in his podcast, he would say, "What's your first musical memory?" He would ask every guest that. And I had to think about that. And my first musical memory is hearing After the Love Is Gone by Earth, Wind and Fire as like a 7-year-old. And knowing not knowing the reason, the meaning behind the song, but I distinctly remember hearing Philip Bailey's voice.
An amazing voice.
And hearing Maurice White's voice.
Yes.
So that's why it's just, I could tell like what happened to me in my life, and I can tell you what song was on the radio, or what song I was listening to on my 8-track, my vinyl, my CD, now streaming. So it's like I was born at the right time because I was able to experience.
Man, tell me about it. You said 8-track? Oh, I remember.
Right.
I remember when the 8-track wouldn't play, you had to get a piece of paper and put slide a little paper in.
Oh no! Also in the cassette where you had to use a pencil and put it in there and just turn it. Yeah. Yep. You haven't lived until you do do that.
We used to work magic with paper. I mean, the paper was used for the 8-track, and then when you wanted to record over, say, a cassette tape that you no longer wanted, all you had to do was put some paper.
Yep,
and
exactly.
the notches on the top, and you could record over it. We was innovative.
Right, but I would say this long, academic-y, life-changing answer, but I feel like, it's very simple for me. Black music is life.
I heard that. As we approach the end of the episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Much appreciation to Dr. Hudson, Jackie, my viewers and listeners, and DJ Guy West for blessing us with a dope podcast, Be Forgot Time. Know thy history and celebrate Black Music Month by creating your own playlist or by supporting a local artist. Discover a new Black artist or music project. Speaking of new music, let's end this episode with some new music by Queen Destiny.